I'll show you how to enter a new patient. You're going to go to Configuration, Personal Data. You're going to highlight the Persons tab. Select the plus button, which will allow you to enter a new patient. Type in the gender, the name, first and last, and their date of birth. You'll hit the arrow, that's the refresh button, and it's going to put the patient in the system. First, I want you to notice that my patient is lying flat. I'm going to ask him to put his palm facing the ceiling, and his forearm will be flat. But before you get started with this test, you want to make sure you have a pen, a measuring tape, and you want to make sure the green light is on for the cutometer. First, you're going to measure their arm from the crease of their elbow to the crease of their wrist. So we measure from crease to crease because what you're going to do is you're going to take the measurement for the skin elasticity test 1/4 of the distance from the elbow down the forearm, okay? So his forearm is 28 centimeters. So I'm going to place a dot with a pen at 7 centimeters because that's 1/4 of the distance from his elbow. So once you've measured the patient's arm, you're going to find him in the system. You're going to go to Configuration, Personal Data, the Overview tab, and to select a patient, you're going to type the first letter of their last name. Okay. So this is our test patient, so we're going to type the letter T, and what's going to happen is it's going to scroll through the entire database till it gets to the letter T. I'm going to select my test patient. To select a patient, you just select their name and hit exit. Okay. Now notice you won't see their name anywhere on the screen, but if you selected the patient and hit exit, that patient will be the one that's highlighted. Okay, now you're going to make sure the cap is on the probe. This is very important because you're going to essentially charge the probe. Okay, you're going to hit the measurement button. You're going to hear it charging the probe, and basically what it's doing is it's just allowing the probe to have enough pressure to suction up the patient's skin. Okay, so I see on my screen that it says pressure is okay and we're ready to start the measurement. So what you do first is you take the lid off of the probe, and you'll see here that there's a hole right in the center of the probe. That's the spot that's going to actually suction up the skin. Okay, so you want to make sure that hole is going to be on a spot of the forearm that has no hair, no pen marks, no scars, nothing that would affect the skin elasticity. For your positioning, what you're going to want to do is rest your right elbow on the exam table, okay? You're going to hold the probe from the top, and you're going to set the probe next to the pen mark, okay? So you'll set this on the arm. Okay, again, I want you to notice that my elbow is rested here and my hand is on the top of the probe. I'm not pushing, I'm basically just applying the pressure of my hand onto his arm. Okay, so once I'm in place, I'm going to hit the space bar. So right now we're generating what's called curve 1, and curve 1 is going to appear red on the screen. So we just did our red curve, that's curve 1. Great, so we're going to do a second curve. We're going to call it curve 2. And that placement is going to be directly above the original curve 1. Set it down. Arm stays the same, just applying pressure, the pressure of my hand. And I hit the space bar. Hit it once, and then you're going to hit it a second time. The first time just recharges it. Second time actually starts the measurement. You want the curves to superimpose as you're generating the tests, because that tells you that you're getting accurate, precise measurements. The third curve we're going to do is going to be a green curve. And instead of being directly above the original position, you're going to go directly below it, 1/2 inch. So I use my pen mark as reference to where I went for the first curve. I place the probe down. Same thing, hit the space bar. It pressurizes, hit the space bar again. and curve 3 is now being generated. We're going to go ahead and save these curves since these all look pretty good. They're pretty superimposed. We're going to hit File, Save, All Curves. Okay, so the title is going to be Curve 1, and all you're going to need to do is input the skin area that you just measured, okay? And what you'll do is you'll type in the letters RVFA and the letter 1. That stands for right volar forearm 1 for curve 1, okay? You're going to hit OK. All right, title 2, curve 2, you're going to save the same thing except you're going to change the 1 to a 2. RVFA2. Hit OK. And then for curve 3, RVFA3. And you've saved all 3 curves. Now you're going to print them. There's 2 steps to printing. First, select the printer because this will not have the default printer selected. So you'll select the icon that has the wrench, and you'll select the printer you want it to print to. Hit OK. Okay, part 2, you're going to actually print it. So you hit the printer button right next to the icon that has the wrench. When you're done, once you've printed your report, it's very, very important that you close the software after every use. If you don't, the actual machine will overheat. When you close the software, you'll hear it decompress, and you'll see that the green light is off. You're going to do all 3 measurements on the patient's arm, and at the end, you want to look at it and see, are these good measurements before you give it to the doctor. So you know it's a good measurement when the curves are superimposed. Well, what does that mean when they're superimposed? Because a lot of times the 3 curves will not be all the way superimposed, like absolutely on top of each other, but what you want to do is you want to look at the bottoms of the curves, especially the first 2 or 3 curves, and make sure those are superimposed on each other. I'm not too concerned with the tops being superimposed or even the last 3 or 4 curves being superimposed. It's really the first 2 or 3 curves and the first 2 or 3 bottoms curves. Those should be superimposed. And if they're not, if they're more than a block away from each other, which a block was a unit on the software, if they're more than a block away from each other, then you should repeat that curve. Well, on the screen here, I see curve 2 and curve 3 are superimposed. Now curve 1, which is the red curve, it's a little bit, it's not quite as superimposed as we can make it. So you're going to want to make sure you do all 3 tests and then decide at the end of, after you've done all 3 trials, you're going to decide if one is an outlier. And if one's an outlier, you can easily throw it out and repeat it. And I'll show you how to do that as well. You're going to go to File, Close, and you're going to close curve 1 since we want to throw it out. It's going to ask me if I want to save it. I say no. I'm going to repeat it. Hit no. Okay, and we're going to go back to the position for curve 1, which is going to be right next to that pen mark, except I'm not going to put it on the exact spot where I had it before because that skin's already fatigued from the first trial. So we're going to do it a little bit to the right or to the left of the original spot, but essentially in the same area, okay? Oftentimes in your database, if you have 2 patients with the same last name, it'll ask you to choose which patient you have selected. So you'll have to go and specify which patient you have. So you're gonna, it's gonna bring you to this menu, and you're gonna hit Overview, okay? Now, it's very important that you type each letter of the patient's name one by one. So you're going to hit, so this patient's last name is Test. We're going to type T, okay, and then we're going to select the field next to person name, put our cursor back in there, and you're going to hit E, select the field again, so the cursor's next to the E, S, select the cursor into the field, and then T. And you're going to see all the patients come up that have the last name Test, and you're just going to have to choose which one it matches the right first name. So I'm going to choose the first one, Test, and you just hit OK.